How we doing? How we doing? This is Destination Denver, Colorado, and today you're thinking about moving to Arvada, Colorado, one of the Denver Metro's best suburbs? Well, we're going to explore it starting right now. All right, this is Destination Denver, Colorado. I'm your host, Jimmy Evertson, listener. If you're interested in learning all the ins and outs, pros and cons to moving to or around Denver, Colorado, then this is the channel for you. So that subscribe button and notification icon you see, make sure you click on that as I'm dropping new videos for you each and every week. And as much as I try to be a little informative here on camera, I'm also a licensed mortgage broker covering the entire state of Colorado and team with some of the Denver Metro's most talented realtors. And we're helping people move here each and every day. So the number and email you see on your screen, know that I'm always the person, answer your phone calls, answer your texts, answer your emails. There, winning if you need me. Now that we're done with that fun-filled stuff, let's get to what we're here for, and that is moving to Arvada, Colorado in 2024. So if I were to tell you that Arvada grew on me over a period of time, that would be no lie. Growing up in Lakewood, just south of Arvada, didn't really care for the suburb as a kid, didn't know much about it, and they were our rivals in all types of sports, from elementary all the way through high school. Now, when I moved back, Arvada has quickly become one of my absolute favorite locations, and it has been one of the most popular for clients I have, whether they've moved from out of state or people living here. I always say the two areas that I get the best feedback on, whether people move there or not, just checking it out, are Arvada and Littleton. So with Arvada, this was an area founded in the mid to late 1800s as the gold rush started to pick up in Denver. And Arvada is kind of one of those regions where when you Google it, it has an odd shape to it. It kind of stretches out, both going north and then areas as it goes out west. The benefit to Arvada is partially location. You're not too distant from Denver. You have pretty easy access to get into the mountains. And then if you're going to other regions, you want to get south into areas like Lakewood and Littleton, or if you want to get up into Boulder, you have pretty quick access. So I'll find that a lot of people who don't necessarily want to be close to the city, but still want to have access to, again, getting into Denver or getting into the mountains quickly, they'll look into areas like Arvada. Now this is where Arvada immediately gets interesting, and there are parts of Arvada that we call Arvada, and then there are parts of Arvada that locals refer to as Farvada. So if you Google map Arvada, again, you're gonna see that there's an area called Old Town that we're gonna talk about here in a bit, and then Arvada starts to stretch. It goes north and really starts to stretch out west. Now from a distance perspective, it doesn't seem that long. It's a handful, 5, 10, maybe 15 miles. But the reason that we call it Farvada is because a lot of that drive is service roads. It's streets that are between 25 and 35 miles per hour, stop signs, red lights, etc. So that drive can seem a lot longer than simply the 10 to 15 miles you might be traveling. Now this is going to be important for people looking at Arvada because there's a love-hate relationship there. I know plenty of people who live in that region of Arvada as we get out to areas like Stanley Lake and Ralston that love it. They love the fact that there's a little bit of seclusion. They love the fact that it's suburb and it's quiet. It's very pretty, very green, filled with trails. But at the same time, you have that extra commute. As opposed to areas of Arvada, again, near the downtown region that we'll get into, where you have that quick access point and you're more centrally located. And while normally, again, I'm gonna get to that downtown region, I wanna lead with a lot of the outdoors, because when you see Arvada, I mentioned, it's a pretty community. It really is. Filled with trails, walking trails, parks, a handful of lakes, including, again, Stanley Lake. There's a lot to like from a visual perspective of Arvada. And obviously parts of it, you start to get nestled into the Front Range, you get into the mountains, you have Golden in between parts of Arvada that kind of intersect with Golden, and then into the Rockies. So very scenic. And one of my favorite things in Arvada is to just get outdoors. There's just so many different walking trails and parks and areas to explore. And every time I get out there, especially to prepare for one of these videos, I either encounter an area that I hadn't really looked at before, or again, I get feedback from people, a lot of them from this channel, telling me, Jimmy, you gotta go check out this area. You gotta get footage of it. As I make this video, I'm making it right in the middle of April, and I can't wait because here in a few weeks, even I'd say a week and a half, we're gonna get leaves throughout the trees, and I'm gonna be back out in Arvada flying the drone more, so stay tuned for that. Now, I held off long enough, so one of my absolute favorite parts of Arvada and something that just draws people to the community is Old Town Arvada. That's OLDE, Old Town Arvada. One of the coolest little, downtown regions that these communities have. And there's a handful of them that I, again, am a huge fan of. Arvada has a great one. Littleton, as I mentioned earlier, has a great one. Golden to the west, fantastic. But Arvada might have the overall best. And the reason being is that it has a mix between roads where you can drive your car and get around, and then especially during the pandemic, they closed off certain roads to where they are walking traffic only. And so you just have this great community feel where you have your restaurants, your shops, a lot of local boutiques, one of the best Army Navy supply stores you'll find if that matters to you. I'm a Navy vet, so I gotta hit up my Army Navy surplus. Sometimes I need some camouflage pants. But just these great areas, and they have some of my favorite bars, including and restaurants for that matter. They've got one called the Schoolhouse, which is an old school, and it's got the big chalkboard above the bar. Great for libations. So classy when I say that, but really great place. Good food, coffee shops, and there's just a lot of pedestrian traffic at all times of the day, especially when it's sunny out. And at the end of the day, it's Colorado, so it tends to get sunny a lot. And one of the nice things about Arvada, and I admit I've forgotten to kind of put an emphasis on this in other videos about the community, is that Arvada has a light rail station running along that Old Town Arvada area. Denver's light rail system can be extremely beneficial if you're in certain communities, if you're near one of their stations. So it doesn't go to a lot of regions across the city. But if you're near Old Town, I found that the light rail can be very beneficial. And again, talking to people who have moved, within 5-10 minutes of Old Town Arvada, they tend to use that light rail system quite a bit. Now, obviously, with Arvada, something that's going to be very important to you is affordability and what that means to each individual person. So as of the making of this video, the median detached home price in Arvada sat at $732,000. Now, to rent a similar home in that community, that median rent price was sitting at $3,100. Now, certainly not everyone is going to be looking at detached homes. Some people are going to be looking at condos and apartments. For that, again, as of the making of this video, middle of April, the median price for a condo in Arvada sat at $467,000, and the median rent for a condo sat at $1,700. And what you'll tend to find is those price points can get a little higher, again, as you get to some of the more desired regions of Old Town Arvada. And then you'll see pockets. There's going to be certain regions where it fluctuates as you get farther away from downtown, but then you also get into certain areas, Arvada, as I like to call it, I overuse, where again, those neighborhoods get very desirable. So you'll look, there are some affordability options in Arvada that I think still hit for a lot of people. It's again, one of those reasons why Arvada is as popular as it is for people moving to Colorado. Now, within Arvada is serviced by Jefferson County School District. That's the third largest school district in the state. And overall, Jefferson County receives high ratings. I always tell people, especially whether you have school-age children or not, and especially if you're going to buy a home, schools will always play a role in the value of your home. So you certainly want to do your due diligence as far as researching schools, or at least being aware of them. Again, specifically if you're buying. So while Jefferson County being a factor in that school district, that's important, but overall there are plenty of options. So Arvada has 80 schools in that community, 42 of them private, and 6 of them being public charter schools. And the feedback I get from clients, again, who have school-age children all the way from, we're talking preschool all the way up through high school, has been positive. Not a lot of negative feedback there, but I always tell people, make sure, especially for your own children, you're doing your due diligence in your research. And a couple things as I make this video, and I always ask people, again, who live in the community, what are a couple things that really stand out to you? A big one was community events. The fact that there always seems to be something occurring year-round, could be holiday themed, a lot of summer events, things that get you outside, but that there is a warm community and an abundance of just doing things together. You'll really feel that, I think, in Old Town because of all of that walkability and the different things they're able to do in that downtown region. It's pretty fantastic. The second thing, as far as feedback I get, is safety. Now, Listen, again, similar to schools, and I'll say it in every single video whenever I talk about schools and whenever I talk about safety. You're going to do your due diligence and you're going to spend time in a community, I imagine, before you move there. But the feedback I get is that clients feel, people, friends, family feel as though they can walk around throughout Arvada. They're safe in their neighborhoods. They feel safe about their loved ones, their children, what have you. So certainly an important aspect. And I would imagine, especially as you get farther and farther into that suburb, as you get farther into Arvada, you know, a little more secluded, a little more suburb, a little slower feeling, a certain slower speed of life, if you will. That was one where I knew slow, but I couldn't get the rest of my words out. Now, I mean, every community that you're going to look at is going to have some drawbacks, and one of the drawbacks potentially of Arvada is in floodplains. So Arvada is one of the very few regions in the Denver metro where certain areas could and have flooded in the past. Now, how does this impact you? Well, this isn't just all of Arvada at risk. There are certain areas in Arvada that could be on what we call a floodplain. There is the possibility of flooding. If you're renting, that may be an addition to your renter's insurance just to be on the safe side. But this is mainly going to impact people who are looking to purchase a home. Because if your home happens to be on a floodplain, you're going to have a separate insurance policy from your typical homeowner's insurance. Homeowner's insurance, at least not in the Denver metro, does not tend to carry with it flood insurance because we're in a high plains desert. It's not a very common situation. So again, not something that's going to drastically impact everybody, but if you are thinking of buying a home in Arvada, it's just something to kind of have top of mind as you approach that. And because I know I will get comments on it, I actually am helping a couple move here now that we had a discussion on it. Part of Arvada includes Rocky Flats. Certainly do some research there because there's plenty of information and there's plenty of conspiracy theories and weird history. Not to say that there aren't things that people need to be aware of and even potentially concerned with, but Rocky Flats is something, if you start going down that Google plane, this video would be another 20 minutes if I got into it. But if you have questions on it, certainly something that I'd be happy to chat about. But overall, again, I think that is why when people talk to me about moving to Denver, and especially if they want to be on the west side of the city, they want to be in the suburbs, but they still want, whether it's the deep suburbs or they want to feel where they have a nice town to get to, Arvada is going to be near the top of that list of recommendations. And would love to hear your experiences if you decide to explore Arvada. And that's a perfect opportunity, especially if you're in Arvada and you're gonna go to the schoolhouse, or maybe you're gonna go to Homegrown Tap and Dough, another favorite place of mine. There's a lot of them on the list. That's an opportunity to hit me up with a phone call, with a text, with an email, knowing that I am always the person that's gonna answer those phone calls, texts, and emails. In the meantime, this is Destination Denver, Colorado. I am your host, Jimmy Everts. That was moving to Arvada, Colorado in 2024. Until I see you next time, peace.